Hello, everyone. Welcome to another captivating episode of Keeping It Real by Housing.com. The festive season has brought good cheer for the realty sector where sentiments are up and luxury realty is at an all time high. The Real Inside Residential Report, a review of the third quarter between July and September by PropTiger.com, a part of REA India, which also owns Housing.com, showed some insightful trends. The report showed that India's top 8 residential market reported a year on year decline in both housing sales and new launches. It attributed a 5% year on year drop in sales owing to a spike in home prices, an average of around 20% across the top 8 cities. The slump in sales impacted new launches in the new quarter as well. There was a 25% year on year decrease in new launches as compared to the same quarter last year. To help us understand the contrasting facts from the Q3 report card of India's leading real estate markets, we have with us Vikas Wadhawan, CFO of REA India and business head of PropTiger.com. Hello and a warm welcome, Vikas. Delighted to have you on the show as always.
Hello, Gaurav, and hello to all your viewers.
Let's start off with a fundamental question. It's a kind of a paradox, actually. While consumer sentiment has remained positive, the report of PropTiger.com shows a degree of slowdown in the third quarter. How do you reconcile this? How do you explain this, Vikas?
Uh, I think the consumer sentiment remains optimistic while we see numbers declining by 5% on the sales side and launches declining by 25%.
Right.
But I think there is a linkage to that. Typically, we've seen that April to September period is a slow period for real estate market on the back of very high heat in a lot of geographies, then followed by monsoon season, which is tricky in the large cities. So it is a slow period as far as real estate is concerned. And you also know that in this period, in pretty much all the regions, there are some
Correct.
religious periods where people do not do the large purchases. So that is one reason where I attribute these numbers to. Second, we also need to keep in mind that quarter two, which is April to June, there were federal election. There was a little bit of slowdown in terms of approvals, launches, and so on and so forth, because real estate is a highly regulated business. There was a little bit of slowdown during that period, which has impacted the
Hmm.
launch numbers for Q3. And that is the reason we are seeing the sales as well as launch numbers declining in this quarter as compared to the previous year. But as I mentioned, the consumer sentiment remains optimistic despite slowdown. Both sales as well as rental markets are very upbeat. And in fact, I would say this is a much better market as compared to Q3 of 2023
Right.
from an end user perspective, because last year or until Q1 of 2024, there was a bit of frenzy in real estate market where things were getting sold pretty fast. And
Right.
that's not the best time for an end user perspective, because real estate is one of the largest financial commitment for any individual. And not only the financial commitment, it is a big emotional decision.
Right.
Therefore, the end user typically takes a lot of time in terms of looking at different options in the market, then making multiple visits to the site with the family, with the kids, and maybe with the parents before they end up making that decision. So that frenzy has settled down. So good time for the end users. So I'm pretty positive about the long-term growth in the real estate sector.
Vikas, what are the strong market fundamentals which continue to encourage real estate? You mentioned some of these in your previous response, but my question is more specific as a preferred investment avenue, as an asset class. This is despite the fact, and if I may use the word, there are signs of a bit of overheating in the property market if you go by what recent price trends are showing. So, what is it that fundamentally the real estate sector or realty as an asset class remains attractive, Vikas?
Sure, Gaurav. So I think first of all, while yes, in the last 2 years we've seen a spike in the prices, but I think we all know real estate is a cyclical industry, and it's not India, but all across the globe, real estate is a cyclical industry. We have just come out from a very very long downturn in real estate between 2015 to 2000 until pretty much 2021. And that is where, in the last 2 years, when the market started moving upwards, we saw the prices started moving upwards. While if you look at a very short window of maybe a year or 2 years, you will say the property prices have spiked pretty sharply. But if you draw the line over a longer period of time, maybe between 2020, 2015 to 2024, a 10-year window, the property price increase is not more than 6 to 8% in different markets. And that's what we typically anticipate from a real asset class, from a price growth perspective, right? So that's one important factor which we need to keep in mind when we say the market has already heated up. My
Mm.
view is it's not, and it is just a correction or a step jump taken in the market, which was pretty much paused. Prices were pretty much paused for a very very long period. Now, coming to some strong fundamentals for real estate market in India, we all know that there is a huge shortage of housing in India. Uh, this is coupled with the economic growth and nuclearization in families and
Mm.
urbanization. These are three important factors which is driving. We need
Mm.
more and more houses. We need more and more modern styled housing, I would say, because when the economic growth happens, people have more disposable income, their aspiration changes. So
Mm.
they don't want to stay in the old styled housing, they want to stay in condominiums, they want to stay in better planned cities or societies where you have amenities, where you have better houses, and so on and so forth. So these are some strong fundamentals which is driving the real estate demand. There is a huge shortage of homes in India.
Right.
Plus, if you see large part of our big cities, they are all of them are like planned or designed or developed almost 50 years back.
Right.
Whether you talk about Delhi, you talk about Bombay, you talk about maybe Chennai and Bangalore as well. And now people are saying because of a lot of population and because those cities were horizontally planned and not vertically planned, they are congested on the back of traffic, population,
Right.
and so on and so forth. That is where people are moving out, moving into better houses, and so on and so forth. On top of it, the investment, continuous investment of Indian government into infrastructure will continue to drive real estate, and that's what we've seen across the globe. Whether we look at what we've experienced in China in the last 20 years, right?
Right. Right.
So investment in infrastructure drive the demand in real estate. Last but not the least, the policies and reforms and regulatory oversights is making this industry more and more sustainable or stable, I would say. And people are getting more and more confident taking exposure, the financial exposure in this industry, and thanks to some of the reforms like RERA and all. So
Right.
these are few factors. I'm pretty optimistic, or rather, I would say I'm bullish about real estate market from a fundamentals perspective over a longer period of time.
Absolutely. Because let me try and help understand from you something that is kind of an outlier, has been an outlier in terms of geography of the real estate market in the country, and that is the Delhi NCR region. It continues to remain one of the topmost attractive centers, both from using point of view as well as for also from an investment destination, so far as property market is concerned. And every other day we keep on seeing news and headlines coming in newspapers and television channels and across social media about some eye-popping numbers of houses being sold at jaw-dropping prices. Now, in your view, what's the secret sauce, and why does Delhi NCR continue to buck the trend? Uh, compared to say some other cities, because this remains one of the most attractive investment destinations so far as real estate is concerned. So what is so special about Delhi NCR, Vikas?
So I think one reason which I just mentioned in the previous question, one reason, Gaurav, is a lot of people from Delhi are moving out of Delhi, and they are wealthy people because they are from the business background who have good businesses in Delhi NCR, and can afford reasonably priced properties, or they have their properties in Delhi, which you typically, if you sell anything in Delhi, you can easily buy what we call an expensive apartment in Gurugram or Noida. So that is
Yeah.
one trend which we are seeing. A lot of people moving out of Delhi and buying property in Gurugram or in Noida, which is part of Delhi NCR. And this is happening on the back of changing aspiration, especially which is fueled post pandemic. Because pandemic, when people got locked into houses, they realized they need community living. They need living where you have access to the healthcare facilities, you have access to the basic amenities, you have access to the healthcare services in the nearby. Which, while it's there in Delhi, but Delhi is a quote unquote very it's designed or planned or developed 50 years back or 60 years
Mm.
back. It's
Mm.
not catering to the needs of younger aspirational India, right?
Mm.
That is why people are moving out. And second, we've seen a lot of migration happening to the bigger cities, and Delhi NCR and Bombay attracts the most. And these are the commercial centers for our Indian economy. And that is where we are seeing a lot of international companies setting up their base in Gurugram, Noida. They are hiring a lot of people. They are hiring a lot of people at high salaries, which is what is driving demand in real estate in Delhi NCR. So while yes, again, if you look at a shorter window, last 1 year, Delhi NCR saw almost 57% increase in prices in just 1 year. At the same time, as I say, if you draw this graph over a longer period of time, there was absolutely no change in the prices for almost 7, 8 years. So that's, I would say, a temporary shift. So we may see that the property prices may not increase for the next few quarters in Delhi
Mm.
NCR, but I don't see any signal or any sign which will indicate or which indicates that the property prices will come down. People may take a little bit time to adjust with this new reality or new prices, but
Mhm.
the demand will eventually kind of fall into these pockets, and people will start finding their homes because property prices will not come down.
Yes, so interesting, because you are suggesting and probably foreseeing that property prices will at best remain flat or grow at a slower rate, but is certainly not going to come down, particularly in the Delhi NCR region. That brings me to the last question. If you were to advise buyers, and specifically on the rise in prices, uh, in your view, do you think these spikes are consistent across all top 8 cities, or do you think there are aberrations on a comparative scale among cities? And what would your advice be to the buyers? Because
Yeah. So there is definitely different cities are presenting a very different price trends because different cities are following a different price trajectory. Delhi NCR took the longest to come out of the downturn, and probably the cities like Hyderabad, they came out of the real estate downturn much earlier, and we saw property prices rising very, very sharply in the late 19s, 2019 until 2022 or 20, early 23. But now it is slowing down or cooling down. So Hyderabad grew only by 7% year on year in terms of average property price. But Delhi NCR, as we spoke, grew by 57%. And if you talk about some other big cities, whether it is Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, Pune, they all grew in the range of 15 to 20% ballpark. So this is a reflection of how different cities have come out of the downturn and how the property prices started moving up. So that's a mixed bag. To answer your second part of the question, what's the advice to the buyers? There are two segments of buyers, right? The first segment of buyers, I always say end users. There is always a best time to buy a property because you're buying a house where you're going to stay at least for the next 10 to 15 years. And in this long horizon, uh, at what price point you enter doesn't matter because the property prices over a longer period of time will continue to grow at 6 to 8%. So it's always a good time to buy. The important thing to keep in mind for an end user is to look at your finances, whether it is your self funding and how much you can fund through a mortgage. Look at the micro market where you want to buy the property which has a good access to your office, which has a good access to the kids' school, which may have good access to the healthcare services if you're staying with your parents, and so on and so forth. So these are the important considerations which the end user should keep in mind. But uh, yeah, it's always a good time to buy property. From an investor perspective, I would say because investor typically look at IRR, IRR over a period of time. So one may say Delhi NCR, which has seen a very sharp increase over the last 1 year, 1.5 year. It may be you may want to hold off at least for a couple of quarters to see how the property prices are moving, because I feel there might be a slight pause. It will not come down, but there might be a slight pause for at least few quarters before the property prices start moving up again. So that's. But if you are again investing into real estate for a 5 year horizon, which I always recommend. Don't come into real estate for an investment for 2 years or 3 years or 1 year, because typically it takes longer period of time to generate returns. If you are investing in real estate for 5 years, you can buy it today as well because you will again see a step jump in prices in the 5 year window. But if you're entering for 3 years, 2 years, you may want to hold off because property prices may not move in Delhi NCR for next few quarters.
Absolutely, because very well said. Is it's never a bad time to buy property. In fact, it's always a good time to buy property, and never ever get into property as an investor, keeping the short term in mind. It's always a medium term and a long term horizon that you need to look at. Thank you, Vikas, for taking the time out and dropping by to have a conversation with us on a range of issues and sharing your insights. It's always such a pleasure and delight to host you.
Thank you, Gaurav. And I would like to wish you and all your viewers a very happy and colorful festive season, like the background of my screen right now. So, wish you all a very happy festive season. Thank you.
Likewise, Vikas, from us to you as well. That's it from us for this episode. We shall be back again with a fresh episode of Keeping It Real by Housing.com with information and insights on the real estate industry. Whether you are a pro or a beginner, we are here to keep you informed and entertained in the world of Indian real estate. This is Keeping It Real by Housing.com, where we keep it real always. You can catch the episode on Housing.com, on the Housing.com app, on the YouTube channel of Housing.com, on YT Music, on Earshot.com, on Amazon Music, on Spotify.com, Apple Podcast, and Geo7. Take care and stay safe.